welcome to the 11th day of our online 21-day program on human rights. We've been discussing in this module about the definition of human rights, of it being right to life, right to equality, right to liberty, and right to dignity of the individual. And then after we did our classes on classification, what's a rights-based approach, we moved on to looking at women's rights and the whole span of rights that you saw. We consciously kept policing and human rights separate because the usual impression is only matters dealing with the police. And here we wanted to do the reverse in this training. And therefore, today we are on policing and human rights. And of course, there are a number of things to be covered, and therefore this is a 1.5-hour session. Friends, the best person we could get for this program for you was Devika Prasad. And thank you, Devika, for accepting our invitation. Devika is a close friend of ours personally as well as of People's World. She has been long the program head of police reforms at the Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative, of which for many years Maya Darwala, whom you met in the inaugural, was the director, and she's now continuing as the senior advisor. Her work there involves policy and legal research and analysis, intervention and advocacy, and strengthening networks with civil society groups. She leads the research and advocacy on a range of issues such as police accountability, police reform, diversity, discrimination related to policing, and the intersection between policing and human rights. She has worked with a steady focus on policing issues since 2003 and has submitted various policy submissions to police departments and government ministries, including state governments. Earlier, she worked with the International Committee of the Red Cross, as well as the Working Group on Human Rights in India and the UN, about which you all know. She has a bachelor's degree in political science, a master's in comparative legal studies from the School of Oriental and African Studies of the University of London, and a master's in human rights and criminal justice from Queen's University, Belfast. I must tell you, she's a very passionate engager with cases of human rights from the grassroots. She gels well with grassroots activists who work on hardcore issues of torture, police violence, extrajudicial killings, different excesses, etc., and believes in jointly working with a number of grassroots workers all across the country. But she also works very well with top policemen of the country who believe in ensuring that police reform is moved forward. We have a very close friend in Devika, and that is why she is here. Thank you, Devika, for accepting the invitation. The floor is yours, and as you know, you'll be free to stop whenever you think you would need to break between 20-25 minutes, so that we have 10 minutes of questioning, and then we get back to you once again. Thank you. I will not disturb you with coming on the screen, but at 20 minutes, I will come on the screen so that you know 20 minutes is over, and then you can take a decision when you want to stop. Welcome from all of us here. Thank you.
Good morning. I hope that everybody can hear me. It's really such an honor to be with all of you, and especially under the banner of People's Watch. So that gives me the greatest pleasure, and I wish that I could see all of you, but I guess that will be for another day. Now, we're going to talk about policing and human rights today, which is a contentious and a difficult topic. No question about it. It's a difficult topic and it's a difficult issue. And I will try to give you as much information as I can in this limited time. I can't give you all the information which is needed to be given, but I will try to cover key areas. So I will give you first a brief overview of policing as a system, because it is important to understand that policing is a system. It's a public institution, and it has there are particular aspects which need to be seen. I'll touch a little bit on the history of policing, because policing is one of those issues where the history has not actually left it. It's still very much in the present. There's much about policing which is very much defined by the way that it started. So, and that's not for the good necessarily, but it just might give you more of an insight. And I'll also tell you about key legal rights vis-a-vis policing, and end with maybe a few practical tips, just in dealing with the police, things to keep in mind. I hope that none of you will ever have to deal with the police. That is everybody's hope. But if one does, then one has to have the knowledge of the rights which are due to each of us. And we don't have to ask for them. They are our rights because they come from the Constitution and from the law. So this is also something which I hope will give you a sense of strength after we finish today. Now, in terms of police, you can see the slide. Police is a state subject, which means that every state has its own police force. And so at last count, we are at 28 state police departments. One was extinguished last year with, the changes to the status of Jammu and Kashmir. Each union territory also has a police service, but the union territory's police service is administered by the Ministry of Home Affairs. So every union territory's police service, the governance of it and you can say the political administrative control of it is exercised by the Ministry of Home Affairs and not by the local administration. Now, I think it's well settled for all of you that the Constitution of India is the supreme law, and so please don't be under any delusion that the police absolutely have to uphold and protect and respect human rights. This is clear. This is the legal position. Whether they do it or not is, of course, a much more contentious question, and they often don't. But their mandate, their duty is to uphold the Constitution of India first and foremost. And I don't have to, I'm very lucky that I'm coming after so many very experienced speakers on fundamental rights, so you have that base. So you must keep that base in mind. Now, every police is just established in terms of, just its basic structure, etc., by a police act. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that as we keep going. And you must also remember that police actions and police procedures, all of the procedures that they are to follow in criminal cases, largely in criminal legal cases, where there is an accused, a victim, etc., those are all governed by the Code of Criminal Procedure. I'm sure you must have been hearing about the Code of Criminal Procedure, which from now onwards I'll call the CRPC for short. While I'm not going to get into the sections, etc., of the CRPC, anybody here who is to deal with the police, is interested in learning about policing, you must know sections, you must know the frame of the Code of Criminal Procedure very, very well. Most of our legal rights and safeguards when it comes to the police are derived and established in the Code of Criminal Procedure, all of it falling from the Constitution of India. And then the Evidence Act, of course, also does have several safeguards which are in place, and the rules, and it contains the rules of evidence, which is very important at the stage of trial of any case. Now, I've put special laws in a bracket because it may be that in certain cases, for instance, in cases of terror crimes, in cases of atrocities against Dalits or tribals, it may be that another law, a special law, has procedure and contains procedure which the police must follow. It doesn't mean that the Code of Criminal Procedure is extinguished, but sometimes special laws have procedures which have to be followed, which in a sense override the Code of Criminal Procedure or replace some aspects of procedure. In some cases, this is good. In some cases, it's not good. Next slide, please. Now, in terms of the history of policing, I won't go into this too much, but I just wanted to point out to you that, the history of policing is really still remains a mirror to the present. Now, when we talk about the history of policing, it is the history of conquest, subjugation, and imperialism. The police was the arm that the first British East India Company, which came as a trading post and a trading entity, which then morphed into, the British Raj. It was the police which was the arm which was used to grow the empire. And what does that mean? It means that the police was the arm which was used to subjugate the colonial population, many times through brute force. And often, it was a police which was subject to almost solely the orders of a political authority. Now, all of this culture still remains in our policing today. We, of course, have many more accountability institutions, but this basic culture is still very much there. It also, the colonial police was a police which was very feudal within itself. So there was an officer class which was mainly British or Irish officers, and then there was, Indians were the lower ranks. And we also still have a policing system which retains much of this hierarchy, which I'll explain to you also. Really, we can say that that police was a ruler's police and not a people's police. And unfortunately, the Indian state hasn't done enough to make our current police also truly a people's police. Next slide, please. Now, in the transition to becoming a constitutional democracy, suddenly we went from being a subjugated population to a free population governed by this truly heroic constitution, aspirational constitution, and noble constitution. That's a very big transition to make in a fairly short time. And of course, everyone, I think all bodies of state have to also catch up. I would say that the police in India is still catching up. The police in India has not become what we may call a constitutional police. Now, there are several reasons for that, many reasons for that, but I just want to leave that there. So you have a little bit of this dichotomy in terms of policing. And at that time, at the time of independence, there was no legal reform on many fronts when it came to policing, but I just want to point to two. The Police Act of 1861, which is the key legislation which made the police, taking away from the army, but made the police that arm of that growing empire with the force and the lack of accountability. That legislation continues to be in force today. That is the fact of India. We still have got this statute on the books, and wherever there is no state police act, the Police Act of 1861 is the governing legislation, is the legislation which at least establishes the police. Since about 2006, many Indian states have legislated, and there is new police legislation at the state level, but it's not very progressive, I must say. The other problem is that Section 197 of the Code of Criminal Procedure, which gives a lot of protection to police from prosecution, is still also on the statute. And it is my view and shared by, by many legal luminaries and many in civil society, that this is a key stumbling block to getting to truly democratic police reform. Okay, next, please. Now, when I just want to point to you that the police structure if you look at this pyramid structure, this data where you can see the percentages of, the ranks of officers, this is data from 2018. This is not old data. This is the latest, most available data. And what I wanted to depict to you in terms of this pyramid is that our police is more, about 85% of our police are the most junior rung. That is how our policing is done in India. That the police who have the ranks which have the least training, the least access to training, the least access to a specialized skill or specialized training, head constables and constables, they are the bulk of our police. The secondary, what you might call the upper subordinates, who are our investigating officers and the officers who lead police stations, they are not even at 15% of our policing, and they are in many ways the most critical, cogs of the policing system. And then the officer supervising class is still at less than 1%. So this is actually, in a nutshell, what your policing system looks like in terms of its personnel. Next, please. Now, the other thing I wanted to point to you, and again, this is data from 2018, is that the police is not representative, and I'm not talking about representative across the board. I'm right now only talking about representative of those communities who have traditionally been left out of the police, but make up large segments of our population and make up the most vulnerable sections of our population. So as of, I think it's January 2019, women across India, across the police in India, across all states, make up only 9% of the police. Scheduled castes only at 14%, scheduled tribes only at 9%, and Muslims, we only have figures from 2013 because these figures haven't been made available since then, only at 3%. So we have a police. Now, there are variations at the state level, but even at the state level, 19 states still do not even meet their quota for representation of scheduled castes within the police. 26 states still do not meet their quota for representation of scheduled tribes within the police. Only 7 states in India at the beginning of 2019 have more than 10% women in the force, and it is led by Tamil Nadu. I think many of you are from that state, where the percentage of women is at almost 18%. Now that again is just a number. It doesn't necessarily mean that policing itself has become better, but still, as a measure of representation, it is important that we see that police organizations are making these strides. And it's still very, very few and far between. So I want to take away from you, what I want all of this to reconfirm is that we have a police which is largely male dominated. We have a police which is largely Hindu. And we have a police which is largely made up of more dominant communities rather than dominant communities which have access to, recruitment, etc., systems into the police. So the makeup of the police also becomes very, very important. Next slide, please. Now, there are a few markers of change, and I won't spend too much time on this, but post-independence, one thing is that no matter whether it is, it may not be always at a very, in a consistent way, but there are multiple levels of accountability, and the police can be held accountable at multiple levels, which is a stark departure from the pre-independence era. So we have courts, we have legislatures, we have commissions, who I think you'll all be hearing about in a next session, civil society. So organizations like People's Watch, who consistently fight for accountability and fight for justice. And we have so many around the country, so many courageous people who take on the police on behalf of people who are victimized by the police. And of course, the media is also another strong, can be a strong agent of at least accountability. The growth and expansion of rights-based laws is something which we should be proud of in any case, just as people who live in this country. So the growth and, the coming into legislation of laws like the Right to Information Act, that is another arsenal for police accountability. The coming into legislation of the Prevention of Atrocities Act, that gives protection to groups which need special protection and which the police then have to, special procedures are there, extra procedures are there, which are not a concession, which is necessary and which is desirable and which is needed. So it puts another role on the police, and these are very important roles. The Prevention of Child Sexual Offences Act, again, it's another set of responsibilities and duties for the police. So, the bringing in of these laws does have an impact on changing policing. And then the expansion of the legal rights and safeguards in the CRPC, the Code of Criminal Procedure, is also something which, is positive, because at least on paper, and by law, we do have rights which are to be enforced. And as you've heard throughout this course, a critical thing about human rights is that once they are in law, they are enforceable, which means that you can fight for their enforcement and you can claim compensation and you can challenge when they are violated. If things are not established as rights in law, we are cut off from those remedies. So it's very important that we have those rights as statutory rights, because then even if it means a tough fight, we have the road to fight, and that's very important. Next slide, please. Now, very quickly, I just wanted to give you a snapshot of the rank structure of the police and details here. But what I wanted to point out is, one, that the police in every state is essentially split into two, in a sense, because the recruitment is done at different levels. So every state has what is called a state police service, and you will see the ranks which are part of the state police service. And then there is the Indian Police Service, and all of the officers of the Indian Police Service are recruited by the Union Public Service Commission. So they're actually recruited by the central government, by a body of the central government, and then they join a state cadre. So the recruitment is done at many, many different levels in the police. At the level of the state police service, the recruitment is done at constable, and then at sub-inspector, and then at the deputy superintendent of police post. And then at the Indian Police Service, you will start either as an additional superintendent or superintendent of police in charge of a district. And the other thing to remember in terms of this rank structure, and I would ask if all of you can keep this with you, it can help you to also learn more about the structure of your police, which is important if you ever have to deal with the police. So there are different levels of leadership throughout the police hierarchy. And each level of leadership for a person who may be aggrieved is also a level of remedy. So that's also, we'll get to that later, but that's important to know. Now, all of us as citizens, the first level of the police and the level of the police that we will come into contact with and first come into contact with is the police station. And next slide, please. Now, at the police station, again, this just tells you who is there in the police station. I won't be able to, again, get into great detail, but if you see, every police station is led by a station house officer. They may be called SHO, the station house officer, or the officer in charge. And then there will be investigating officers who are the officers who actually conduct investigation. Not every police officer can conduct investigation. That's also important to remember. It is only officers of the rank of ASI, Assistant Sub-Inspector and above, who can be investigating officers, though now more and more states, because we don't have enough investigating officers, more and more states are passing government notifications in which they're extending investigation powers to head constables. But it'll be for lesser crimes. So then you will always have investigating officers at every police station, and we would hope that some of them would be women. And most police stations, I mean, barring the state of West Bengal, the position of station writer is also there in every police station. And that is the position within the police station that is the person who maintains all the records of the police station. So that is a very important person, especially, in pursuing accountability. If the station writer isn't doing his or her job, then we can also pick up the police on that. And then there'll be a duty officer, who is usually the person who you will first encounter. You may see a sentry when you first come to a police station, especially in rural areas. And after the sentry, you will be met with a duty officer, who is the person who will receive you, who will ask you what you need, who you're there to meet, and direct you to where you need to go. And then, of course, every police station has beat constables who are actually designated areas within the jurisdiction of every police station to patrol and to be in touch with the community. In some states like Kerala, it works very well. In other states, I think it doesn't work very well. It becomes almost a form of surveillance. But it is an important function. And every police station has a designated jurisdiction. So that's also important to know. There will usually be a map in the police station which sets out the full area which is under the control of that police station. And okay, that's the last of the slides. Now, I hope I didn't go too fast, and I hope that gives you a sense of the basic structure and character, really, of the police in India. Now we'll start getting into rights. As we said, and we'll split this between this session and the next session. Hi, Henry. Are we at the 20-minute mark? Yeah? Okay, I'll keep going.
Question? No. Would you like to take questions now? 5 minutes?
Okay, yeah, we can do that, and then we can get into the rights. Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Devika. Very informative with regard to the history and the structure of policing. There have been a few questions with regard to police reform, which I'm not going to ask now, but will come later to it.
Okay.
With regard to specifically what you presented, there is one question with regard to with regard to what made you leave out transgender in police. Are there transgender? Yeah, so you mentioned about women, you mentioned about scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, Muslims, about transgender. One. Second question is, with regard to whether the police should be in the concurrent list, given the cases like cyber attacks, terrorism, etc. Your opinion. Other questions are part of it. We can come back to it later.
Okay. Those are really good questions, and thank you for picking up on that. Now, I should have said that I gave you the data which is reported, which is publicly available. It is the data that I gave you in terms of representation is reported every year in a publication called Data on Police Organization, which is published in the website of the Bureau of Police Research and Development. Now, unfortunately, transgenders and the inclusion of transgenders is not yet a category of data which is provided. And so we would actually have to, I don't know if maybe some police departments are actually publishing that data on their website, but I doubt it, because now, of course, transgenders have every right to join any public authority and to actually be seen as a third gender. But so we would have to, if we wanted to get data, we'd have to collect it through RTI. So that's why I wasn't able to give you that data, but it's very right that you should point out that it should be provided, because we must know how representative is the police, also how many people from the transgender community are joining the police. And of course, you know, once people from a community with perhaps special needs or a particular history join the police itself has to change. It has to change in terms of infrastructure. It has to change in terms of how people speak to each other within the force. I mean, even now, if I may take the term, I hope everyone is aware, cis women, you know, still have a huge amount of difficulty within the police, because there is so much still gender discrimination, prejudice, open prejudice, sexual harassment within the police. And, you know, so then all of this is heightened as you get more and more different kinds of people coming into the police. If the police leadership is not making welcoming changes, is not saying there is absolutely zero tolerance for any kind of discrimination, and that we must have a policy of absolute inclusivity, because that is what the Constitution of India mandates. So I'm sorry that I couldn't give you data, but I don't have access to it. But that's a very right point. Now, this question of the concurrent list, I don't see, in terms of dealing with terrorism and cyber crime, etc. Cyber crime, many police departments at state levels are creating new and special units to deal with cyber crime. I don't know how well they're functioning, because it's a very specialized area, but they are creating those units at the state level. And it's the same with, we do know of very many infamous anti-terror policing units. Now, I would not make this is just my personal view, I would keep policing in the state list, because I think it is important that it's retained as a state government, because see, then lines of accountability also are clearer. So if we put it into the concurrent list, then we might not be sure at what levels will a central government be accountable, in what areas will state government be accountable, because policing is so vast. It covers so many different activities. It's not just about criminal investigation. It's actually about much more. So keeping it in the state list will ensure that the accountability is very clear. And in terms of dealing with it's very right to point out that these new crimes are, you know, they're crimes which could be nationwide, which could involve many states, etc. But that's why police departments need to find ways of communicating with each other, sharing information with each other. And that would be my, I think that would be the way to move ahead, and which in some ways is happening, rather than this kind of constitutional shift as such. Is that all right for those two questions?
Thank you. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Okay. Now we will come to rights. And unfortunately, we don't have enough time, and I doubt that I have the full expertise to tell you all of the rights-based concerns which the police, you know, all of the legal rights which the police are to uphold. So I'll start with the basic ones and a sprinkling, so that you get a sense of what is there, just in the most common occurrences of maybe being called by the police, etc. Now, I'm not going to make it very legal, and I hope that the budding lawyers in the group will recognize the sections that I'm speaking about. But I must tell you that these rights all derive from law. And it is really important, one, to protect oneself, to protect anybody else, to just be an informed person, an informed citizen, to know, to know these provisions of law. I'm not going to name the sections because that'll make it too technical, but mainly everything that I'm talking about is a right which is established in the Code of Criminal Procedure, And we've given, CHRI has provided a lot of material for you, and you can see, you can match the right with the provision. But I would say that that is a big weapon in one's hand, to know where your right derives from. Okay, now I hope that this won't be too basic, but I'll just give you an overview of, now for instance, if the police come knocking on your door, which, I mean, we hope that won't happen, but if that does happen, and they say that you come with us to the police station. They haven't told you why, they haven't told you anything, they've just said come with us to the police station. Already they have violated law, because if the police come to your home to say that we want to ask you some questions and you come with us, they cannot do that orally. They must give you a written order. They must show it to you, and it must be a formal notice summoning you to the police station. Now, within that frame, if you are a woman, if you are a child below 15, if you are anyone who is above the age of 65 years, so a senior citizen, or you are disabled, you cannot be summoned, the police cannot summon you to the police station for questioning. This is the law. It is very important that everybody knows this, because it's the only way that one can hold the police accountable. So at that stage, I know that one would have to summon courage, and I hope that, I'm sure that everybody here is very courageous, and it does take courage, but one should absolutely refuse to go anywhere with the police unless they give you that piece of paper in writing, which is discernible, which you can understand, and which has all of the proper information in it of which police station is calling you, etc. So the other thing to remember, just, in a practice, whenever you're dealing with the police, whether it's maybe you're asking a question on, maybe you're on the street asking a question, or they actually approach you, always try to find out and be aware of the officer's name, the officer's rank. And I know that that's difficult, but in a booklet that we circulated to all of you, it's the 101 booklet, you will see at the back of that booklet that all of the rank insignia of the officers is there in that booklet, and that will be always on their sleeve. So you'll be able to tell. Now, a police officer on duty should be in uniform, should have a name tag, which is seen, and their uniform will have their rank insignia on the sleeve of their uniform. So you'll also, if you get familiar with that insignia, even if you can't know the name, at least you'll know the rank of the officer. And that's also an important accountability. We must really be mindful of who is it that we're dealing with. And one should not be scared to ask these questions. They may not answer, it may become contentious, but you are absolutely entitled to know, because the police cannot just take you away. So do look at those last 2 pages with the rank insignia. I think that would help. Now, in terms of arrest, I hope that this certainly, I hope, will never happen to any of you. But it is important to know that even if one is arrested, or someone that you know is arrested, every arrested person has rights, and several rights. It's not at all that an arrested person is at the mercy of the police, not at all. So knowing those rights is very important. The key rights of an arrested person derive from Article 22 of the Indian Constitution, so these are constitutional rights. And that lays down that any person who's arrested, the police must tell you the grounds of the arrest. Why are they arresting you? What are the charges against you? What are the sections against you? This happens very, very rarely, but you must know that this is a right which anyone who is either at the threat of being arrested or being arrested, this is a question to ask. Now, and they must be clear. They can't just tell you, oh, it is under X. They must tell you sections. They must, actually, you must be very probing to find out. Often they won't even have the sections because they may just be on a fishing expedition, and that's a different story. But unfortunately, that's often what happens. But this is, again, a question to ask. And somehow, if there's somebody with you, it should be noted that the arresting officer did not give you these grounds. Any arrested person is entitled to have a lawyer with them from the moment of their arrest. So from the moment that you either, if you have some advance notice that the police may be coming to arrest you, or even when they come to your door or wherever it happens, your right to a lawyer begins from that moment. Don't be mistaken. It does not begin from the time that you are taken to the police station if the arrest is carried out somewhere else. It begins from the moment that you are arrested. This is laid down by the Supreme Court of India. It is the law of the land. If you don't have a lawyer or know somebody or can afford one, then India has a robust legal aid system in which the state is to provide legal aid. And so you can at least ask that I must have a legal aid lawyer with me. And it is the police's responsibility, and then certainly the court's responsibility when one is first produced, for that lawyer to be provided for you. So again, this is a constitutional right. And thirdly, in Article 22, the right to be produced before a judicial magistrate within 24 hours of arrest. Now, the key thing about this right is that when the police arrest you, they cannot keep you for an indeterminate amount of time. That is not the way that the police in a constitutional democracy like ours should be functioning. Unfortunately, it does function that way, but in terms of the right which is available, it is the police's duty to ensure that anybody who is arrested, within 24 hours of that arrest, that person is shown before a judge. So that finally, a judge will also know that this person is with the police. A judge can ask questions about your well-being. You can bring up any complaints of torture, God forbid, if that's the case. A lawyer can be given to you if you don't have a lawyer at that stage. Medical examination can be sought. So there are many, and then of course there are other corresponding rights. But just in terms of firstly your well-being and also ensuring whether you should be in detention in the first place or not, whether the police have got justified reasons to keep you in detention. That is something which being brought before a judge, finally the judge will be the adjudicator, not the police. So that is a very important function, and I think because the police know it's important, they have found their own ways of sneakily getting around it to the detriment of many people. And I'll tell you about a remedy which can be accessed at that time, but first we'll get through some more rights. Now, of course, an arresting officer must have a visible name tag. And their rank, if otherwise, please do get familiar with ranks if you can, and so that you can see on the side of their uniform what rank they are. That, just to be mindful of that and keep that presence of mind if ever one is in this kind of situation. An arrest has to be recorded by the police at the time of arrest, and that is called an arrest memo. So an arrest memo has to be made. It is a piece of paper. It has a stipulated format in most states. And the important thing about the arrest memo is that it is to record the time, the date, and the place of arrest at the time of arrest. So it is a record of the arrest at the time that it is made, and which is something which the judiciary then should check. So it is as much a check on the police as it is a safeguard for the arrested person. And unfortunately, the law does not say that the copy of the arrest memo must be given to the arrested person, but the judge, the magistrate at the time of first production, certainly should seek a copy of the arrest memo and scrutinize it. And in fact, I mean, if our system could allow that, but you know, the sheer numbers of production do make it difficult. But truly, ideally, what should happen is that the judge should confirm those details with the arrested person and ask the police to leave the court at that time. That's the best way to know whether the police actually arrested the person at the time that they say, and that they followed that 24-hour rule. So the following of the 24-hour rule that you must be produced within 24 hours is a key accountability component, and it's a key right. Now, the other thing which is also important is that every arrested person has the right to have a relative or friend informed of their arrest and the place of their detention. Again, this is in the CRPC. It is the police's obligation to ensure that that happens, and that information of the person who is informed and when they were informed, all of this is to be entered into the general diary of the police station. It's to be entered into a register in the police station. Some police forces, for instance, Delhi police, have a separate register where they enter this information of the person who was informed of the arrest. So that is also something which, you know, I don't know if many people have to fight for that information to be taken forward, but it is a right. Absolutely it is. It is laid down and enshrined. Now the right to medical examination, that's also something which at the time of arrest is a right for the arrested person. If one needs to go to the doctor, then one must, you know, that is something which every arrested person has the right to say that I would like to be medically examined. And the police also have to do a medical exam. Well, actually the police have to do two things. One is that they have to create an inspection memo. I don't know if all of you are familiar with the great judgment of the Supreme Court in the D.K. Basu case, and there are many of these guidelines which have now become law come from the D.K. Basu guidelines. Many of these provisions come from the D.K. Basu guidelines, which laid down key rights for every arrested person. So one thing which is laid down is that the police have to actually record any marks or injuries found on the arrested person's body at the time of arrest. And again, this would be a record to, if it is done, then it is a way to you know, prevent the police from saying that this person, I mean, it's a record of injuries which were, maybe injuries were caused at the time of arrest, in the course of arrest, and all of this needs to be recorded, not just by the police, but also under a section of the CRPC by a medical officer. And a report of that medical examination which records these, any injuries found, any marks found, and the medical officer in that report must also make the determination that perhaps what was the proximate time that these injuries may have been, you know, that the person may have been subject, these injuries appeared on someone's body. So if the police themselves caused injury, that report, that medical examination report, which is not a report looking at medical legal aspects or evidential aspects in terms of evidence found on the body, this is a separate report. It falls under section 54 of the CRPC, and it must be done in every case of arrest that a person is examined by a medical officer for injuries or marks of injuries to be recorded. The report has to be given, has to be sent to court, and also has to be given to a representative of the arrested person. I think this is a right that very few people actually know about, and it is very, very important as a safeguard against torture. And finally, if one can actually pursue accountability for torture, then this again is a key safeguard to pursue accountability for torture, because this in itself may provide evidence of some, you know, perhaps of torture that took place at the time of arrest. Now, there are special procedures when it comes to women. a woman cannot be arrested between sunset or sun and sunrise. It's just not, that is not at all legally permissible. If a woman has to be arrested at this time after sunset, then the police must have the permission of a judicial magistrate. The police cannot effect that arrest by themselves. So again, that's an important thing to remember that. And in terms of handcuffs, in India, the use of handcuffs is essentially prohibited. Arrested persons cannot be handcuffed. There are very, very specific situations in which, if someone may be perhaps violent, or there are very specific situations in which handcuffs can be used, but the police must get the prior permission of court to use handcuffs. Again, it is not something that the police can decide on their own. They must demonstrate reasons to court, and court must give the permission, which also means that court may deny the permission and say, you're asking needlessly, there is no need to handcuff a person. Unfortunately, because of this, basically, I think the thinking behind the bar on handcuffs was, the lack of fetters on an arrested person. Unfortunately, Indian police have found very humiliating, demeaning ways to get around this by using ropes and all kinds of ropes. And in some places, I've even seen people in chains, which I don't know, at the time of first production, a court must absolutely ensure that is disallowed. But what as right, as law, handcuffs are not permitted. The use of handcuffs without a court sanction is not permitted. Now, I have a few more. I want to give you a few more areas in terms of rights which deal with questioning. So if one has been arrested and then the police is questioning you or interrogating you, if you are, a suspected person in the commission of a crime, one very important thing is that all of us have the right against self-incrimination. And for that right to be upheld, the police cannot force anyone to confess. Not only can they not force you to confess, they can't even ask you to make any statement or provide any answer that might indicate your guilt in a case. So now again, this is legal right. It is laid down. And we do know we'll come to the problems around it, but that is very clearly the law. Any confession, any confessional statement which is made to the police in India is not as admissible as evidence. So, that is, a confessional statement is only admissible as evidence when it is made before a judicial magistrate, when the magistrate ensures that you are not being pressured in any way to make that confession, that you are not being coerced in any way, you are not being, you're making that confession freely, without any fear, without any inducement. That is how a confession is legally to be recorded and entered into judicial cognizance. A witness statement that is taken into writing by the police is never to be signed by the person making that statement. Again, I know that, our police not only flout this, often they ask people to sign on blank papers. Again, it will take a lot of courage, but, we should look to the example of people like Henry, who all of us should be able to stand up to the police. We must have that courage and that conviction within ourselves that we can stand up to the police and not allow the police to do things which are blatantly illegal and violative of law and the Constitution. So a witness statement is never to be signed. Not in any circumstance. It is simply just not to be signed. Again, the the reason and the rationale for it comes as a safeguard against a torture. And, you know, any police being able to compel people to make statements or to forcibly or even tamper with what is in the statement. So the police cannot tamper also with what is actually included in a statement. Any statement which is written by which is written down, that is a witness statement, must be faithful to what that witness has said, not to the police version. It must be read over to the witness before it is finalized. The witness must concur that yes, this is what I've said and this is what I meant, and that no fact has. It must be in a language that the witness can understand, and only then is the witness statement fit to be taken forward and put into the case diary of the police officer. And of course, having a lawyer with you, again, if the right to a lawyer starts at the time of arrest, and at the time of interrogation, the right to lawyer is key. Unfortunately, in India, we haven't, you know, at that stage before a person reaches the judge within the 24-hour period, it's not very many police stations where people are able to meet their lawyers. Now, again, this is something which is violative. It's not something which is legal. And now that if you knew before and you know now that you have this right, then I would say that again, summon up the conviction to say, I will not be privy to any interrogation until a lawyer reaches my side. If ever you or anybody you know is in that kind of position, just stick to the right and say that I am entitled to have a lawyer with me when I am being interrogated, and I will not enter into this until a lawyer is here. And it is for the police to ensure that if you aren't able to contact a lawyer or know a lawyer, it is for the police to ensure that a legal aid lawyer reaches you. That is the police's responsibility. And again, it starts at that time, before even the 24-hour mark, before you reach the judge. But of course, a Supreme Court judgment recently has laid down that the magistrate at first production has a special duty to ask whether a lawyer has been appointed and whether a legal aid lawyer is needed, and then to ensure that a legal aid lawyer is also procured for that person at that stage of detention. Okay, shall we take some questions now?
Yes, sure. Thank you, Devika. Thank you very much. Few questions relevant to what you just spoke.
Yeah.
And not coming to the police reform part. A participant wants clarification with regard to in which cases women, senior citizens, or disabled people cannot be called to the police station for questioning.
Huh.
So they just want a little more clarification with regard to the same.
Okay.
Now,
yeah. Sorry, I forgot to say the most important thing of where they are to be questioned.
Yeah. Should I say other questions and
okay.
you can address
Yeah.
all of them?
Yeah.
Okay. The other question is, if the police handcuffs a person in public area, a public place, defaming that person, what is the punishment the police department will take against that particular police official?
Mm-hmm.
And when a person is arrested and does not have access to a lawyer, who has a responsibility to call for a legal aid lawyer?
Very good questions.
Yeah, so I will limit to these three because others are with regard to, police reform I've told you about. There are others with regard to surveillance, protest, etc., which I think you'll cover later on. So these three questions at the moment.
Okay. Now the first question, I'm sorry I left out something important. If a woman, a senior citizen, above 65, a child below 50, all of those categories, if they are not to be taken to the police station, they are to be questioned in their own homes, in their place of residence. and they should staunchly resist being taken out of their place of residence for that questioning. Again, having a lawyer by one side does make it much easier, because unfortunately we don't have a system which helps us. We have to find ways to we have to find ways to enforce our rights, but one should not leave their home. You are to be questioned in your home, at your place of residence. So for those categories. Now, on the handcuffs question, I will also ask if Henry can help me with this one. Now, the question was, if somebody is handcuffed in public and humiliated, what is the punishment? Now, that's a really good question, because there should be a punishment. That is one. Now, I haven't come across cases in which there has been punishment. I don't know if Henry has seen that either. See, it is a clear violation. It should. I feel that unfortunately now every police has a police manual which lays down what are called disciplinary offenses. I feel that this act of handcuffing somebody in public, humiliating them in that way, violating that Supreme Court laid down directive that one cannot be handcuffed without court's permission, should be seen as serious misconduct, and that person, the police officer who does it, I mean, if the system worked the way that it should, that person should immediately be suspended from service. An inquiry should be conducted, and the appropriate punishment of this as a serious misconduct should be given. I don't know if it falls into the threshold of a criminal offense by a police officer, but certainly I think it should be in the high threshold of serious misconduct. But unfortunately, I haven't seen, police, like I said, if they're not necessarily using handcuffs, they certainly use ropes. If there are several accused in a case, I think perhaps in some states where they can really get away with it, there might be caste dimension of humiliating certain people by tying them up, etc. This really should be come down very heavily by both the judiciary and the police leadership. But I can't tell you that I've seen cases where police officers, at least within the department, have been punished. Henry, is there anything? Yeah.
Yeah, just to come in 1 minute and not stop your flow there. Maximum we have been able to do is to pull up the police officer by timely intervention, number one. Two, complaints to the SHRC have resulted in compensation.
Okay.
And disciplinary action initiated, which usually is a long pending exercise, which ultimately will end in their favor. But as you said, it has to be included in the list of offenses, as a result of which proper disciplinary action will be sustained. But it's a loss of dignity, and therefore squarely falls within the definition of human rights, and therefore can definitely improve. That's what is
okay. So that, I think that's a good learning for all of us, that if we ever see something like this, immediately we file a complaint to either the State Human Rights Commission or to the National Human Rights Commission. So that is and I think everybody is familiar with the Human Rights Commissions, right? Okay, no. So, and certainly, just like Henry pointed out, it squarely falls into a human rights violation. Of Human Rights Commission should see it as part of their mandate. It should not be thrown out. It should be inquired into, and relief should be given in some way. There should be repercussions on that, on those police officers or that officer.
I just recall that sometimes I've seen these people being taken in chains, and I'm saying it, please pardon me for saying it the way I'm saying it. It looks as if we are talking about what we have done, but it is more to put I said into practice. Take a video shot. Take a video shot of that person going with some identifiable vehicle or something, so that you will be able to show a higher official that these were the constables who pulled this man out of this vehicle with leading chain or a handcuff. And then that will make the system go crazy. Then you send a complaint to the SHRC with that photograph and ask them to identify who was in that vehicle on so and so. Lost to do much. So we used to do this as active members of the association. Go ahead, please. I talking, please. That's not good. Please go ahead.
No, but that's very, very helpful. So there we have some remedies that we can exercise. Take a video shot, take photos if you can take a video. Keep that on record. Note that if you can note the police station, etc., the place, the court. If it's happening, if they're taking somebody to court that way, and of course the date, etc., and immediately file a complaint to the State Human Rights Commission or to the National Human Rights Commission, with parallel complaints to the police department also, and to that magistrate's court. So that's with all this video and photographic supporting evidence with you. Now, on the last question of a person arrested and to inform the legal aid lawyer, again, this is really, you guys are asking very practical, very, very good questions. Now, here it's a little bit, see, ultimately the responsibility is on the police to to inform the legal aid lawyer. It should be that so I don't know if the structure of the legal aid regime is that, it starts from the taluk, and then of course every district has a legal aid authority. The state has one. So that district legal services authority should be informed, and a legal aid lawyer should be, it should be communicated that somebody at this police station needs a legal aid lawyer. Now, unfortunately, that coordination has not been absolutely formalized as yet. So actually just last year, I think, through the intervention of CHRI and others, but the National Legal Services Authority has actually put in place a protocol, which is a protocol of ensuring exactly this, that there is legal aid. A legal aid lawyer can reach a police station to provide legal aid for a person arrested. Now that protocol needs to be put in place step by step. There needs to be because time is of the essence. When we're talking about that very initial time of arrest, everything should be seen in terms of that 24-hour period. So in fact, as soon as an arrest is carried out, the police must inform, even just by course, by routine, they should inform the District Legal Services Authority that a person has been arrested. And then if a legal aid lawyer is needed, that person should be provided right away. In some states, within the premises of police stations, paralegal volunteers, which are part of the legal aid regime, actually sit in the police station. And, ideally, that's what we would like. Whether somebody can afford a private lawyer or not, the ideal situation should be that some representative of the legal aid regime should be present in the police station on a 24-hour basis, 24/7, because that is the best safeguard. Then we're not only reliant on the police to inform the legal aid authorities, but it's going to be a long time coming before, that presence is assured in that way. Some small moves are being made in that direction, so we can take some hope. We have to try. We really have to do a lot of advocacy to get this in place. There must be joint, shared, clear operating procedures for both the police and for the legal aid actors in how to practically implement this coordination, and especially to ensure that within that 24-hour period, that time is not lost, that, you know, all kinds of useless excuses are not made of why we could not call the legal aid lawyer, because like I said, the right to a lawyer begins at the moment of arrest, not a minute later, and certainly not 6 hours later. So, it is difficult. Right now, I don't think this is a very satisfactory answer to any of you that, you know, the police, before we get to court, it is the police's responsibility. Hopefully, if you have a relative or friend who's been informed or who knows, they can also, you know, come in force, and I mean, they can also help. They can also bring a lawyer to the police station. If you're in touch with civil society, friends or colleagues or advocates, they can help in this regard, but it is difficult. And right now we are, in a sense, reliant on the police, which is a shaky proposition. I think Henry's raising his hand.
Yeah, just a sign of hope. We had a program with the UNDP some years ago, and one of my experiments in the 5 northern states of Orissa, Jharkhand, UP, Rajasthan, and one more state, Bihar, I think, was to have what I called police station lawyers from the legal aid, for young lawyers who are still not got to pally with the police, who still are passionate about law. At a certain stage of experience, lawyers get pally with the police, and that is dangerous. So at the initial stage, we said a legal aid lawyer will be deputed to the local police station for a period of 3 months. His duty would be to visit the police station in the morning and in the evening. And his name and mobile number would be made visible outside the police station, not inside the police station, outside the police station and outside the gate of the police station, not in the building, on the gate, so that people don't need to even compound to see this lawyer's name there. And then they are, when somebody is inside the police station, persons are invited to call this man, and this man should then respond by going to the police station. And I said, pay the lawyer well, pay the lawyer 1,000 rupees a sitting, a day, but make sure the police station is or illegal detention. Now people think that because of the CCTV cameras, things have changed. Things have changed to the extent that no torture takes place in the police station, but torture takes place in the bathrooms of the police stations. That's supposed to be outside the CCTV camera coverage, as a result of which they say he fell into the police station and broke his ribs. So suddenly in the state of Tamil Nadu, you have lots of people with fractures. They fell in police station bathrooms. The third remedy is if this legal aid system doesn't work, you have online, go to websites and you have online complaints very regularly in our office. I've got some young lawyers here who do it very well, who will immediately then it's a record. Somebody is in custody.
Sorry, Henry, I can't hear you.
No, I finished.
Okay.
Finished. I closed so that you I don't want to. I'm conscious of that.
Well, we only have about, I think 10 minutes left. And I had a series of just some practical, points, which I thought if it might help everybody just in dealing with the police. So Matthew, should I do that now, or should we take some more questions?
Up to you, how you suggest. There are some practical questions also, so you can do it.
So,
you might answer many of them. The remaining I can ask you later.
Okay, I mean, it's very fast, and I hope that we'll still have time for questions. I'll be very quick. Now,
okay.
Now, I'm talking in the sense, what I'm trying to tell you is, if any time you have to deal with the police, especially if it's a criminal matter or something, then now some of this is difficult, but whatever you can try, you must try. So one thing is that, knowing your rights and being able to recognize that a violation is being done and somehow finding some way of documenting that. So documenting everything as the process is going on so that one doesn't forget also, that is something which is, really very important. And it should be a documentation, it should be documenting against the right which is being extinguished or violated. Keeping copies. Now, if one is ever, in any legal matter, of course, it's just a rule of thumb. Any complaint you make, any application you give, anything at all, always keep your own copy, because that is your own paper trail that you will then be able to rely on later. And if in seeking your own remedy, you're not getting where you need to, you'll have that too. You'll have that as a fail-safe. So keeping copies of everything is very important, even if that means, inconvenience or cost. Now, one thing just basically that I think that one, if you can do, all of you, wherever you're staying or living, it's always good to know at least your local police station. It's good to know who is the local station house officer, what is that officer's name and number. It is often given in the premises of the police station, but you often have to enter the police station to see that information. Sometimes it's at an area which is a little bit outside. It'll depend on the police station itself. And also knowing the name and the contact number of the chief of the head of the police district, because that person is going to be in some ways, also a remedy for you, and at least certainly someone where a complaint should go if something has happened. So arm yourself with this knowledge in advance. Don't wait for something to happen. Just know that where, the current place where I'm staying, this is the local police station with jurisdiction. This is the person who's in charge of the police station. Have the phone number of the police station, and always know who is the district in charge of the police, who is the district in charge of wherever you are. That also is very important. Now, if you can have a sort of trusted lawyer on standby, that is, or also, trusted civil society friends or colleagues, etc. It's always good to just have those numbers in your phone, know who are the people that you can call immediately if something has happened, because if the police take your phone away, then you might be cut off from the outside world for a while. So as soon as you can even just send a basic message, that I may be taken here, or something, an SOS, a first message just saying that this may happen to me and it may be this police who is coming to do this. That's again also a safety valve for anything further. And again, just knowing the ranks of the police, being able to ask the name of the police that you're dealing with, the police station that they're posted in, or whichever unit that they come from. These are just basic measures which, it's important to be able to ask these questions and to get those answers. It might be difficult to get the answers, but it is important to ask the questions. So, at a most basic level, and please do read the CRPC, know those provisions. We've sent you a lot of material which actually references provisions, legal provisions against the right that it is attached to. So please do know that, because knowing your rights is the best, is in one way is a great shield. Because, the police, if they realize that there is a person before them who does know that there is a procedure, and this is the first step, and this is what I am due, it will put them on some guard. They will realize that we can't just do whatever we want because this person does have some knowledge. Again, it will take great courage, and it's not that the police will be necessarily responsive, but I think it will also put you in a stronger position and perhaps give you, a sense of conviction that, okay, I'm also here as I'm an equal in this, in this situation, and I do have rights which need to be enforced. It's important that the police know that you know. These are just some of the things which and so Matthew, are there any extra, anything else that we can quickly get to?
Yeah, maybe a couple of questions I can put to you, but a lot of people have asked with regard to what can be done when police refuse to file a FIR. It can be with regard to someone is going to a police station to file a FIR, or it's also with regard to police action itself.
Right.
Then there have been questions with regard to use of force by the police, and a couple of people have asked police using force when people are protesting. So I think we can look at these two, and we can look for concluding the session.
Okay, the protest question may be a bit more complex. In fact, we should have one module just on protest, use of force, the right to protest, and use of force, and all of everything around that. But okay, on FIR, I hope I won't have to go. Everybody knows what an FIR is, right? And so it is basically, the first information when a complaint is given to the police of serious crimes, of what are classified as cognizable offenses. And I would also encourage everyone to be familiar with the first schedule of the CRPC, which is a reference point which actually classifies every single criminal offense in penal offense in the Indian Penal Code. But the first schedule of the CRPC puts all the offenses in a table, and it has the heads of whether it is cognizable or non-cognizable, whether it is bailable or non-bailable, what is the punishment, all in one place. In the IPC, you have to go section by section. But here, you can just quickly, it's a very, very good resource. And especially in filing FIRs, it's a very good reference. So if the police refused to register your FIR, again, this is straight up right there. It is a violation of the law, and it is a violation of your legal right to have your FIR registered right away. You have several remedies. You can immediately file a complaint with the superintendent of police and give a written application stating that at this police station on this day, this is the complaint that I was trying to file, that I was trying to get registered into an FIR. If you have a written copy of your original complaint, then you can annex that to all of these applications you make. That's very good. So immediately you can write an application to the district superintendent of police to say that my FIR was not registered, and I ask for an order from you for it to be registered. That is one remedy. And the second remedy is that one can actually seek an order from magistrate's court under section 156(3) of the CRPC, where you can file an application with the local magistrate, the court which corresponds to that police station, to say that my FIR was not registered, and you will seek an order from the court to give an order to that police station, that station house officer, to have the FIR in that complaint registered. So these are two, and of course, if you'd like to, if you want to pursue accountability against, so these are remedies for you to get your complaint registered. Then it's a separate thing if you also want accountability against the officers or, the police who refuse to register your complaint. Now, it's important to note that for gender-based offenses, it is a crime for the police to, it is a punishable offense for the police to refuse to register the FIR in gender-based offenses, including, most prominently rape. So if it's a situation like that, then in fact one can even pursue a criminal case against the police officer. You can try even in other cases under section 166 of the Indian Penal Code, but it's a long hard fight. But the remedy is there. But for gender-based offenses, there is a specific provision which actually says that you can file a complaint against the police, and no sanction for prosecution, etc., is required. So you do have a stronger ground even on that. But these are the two remedies in terms of non-registration. And if you want to pursue, you can write to you can send a complaint to Human Rights Commission. If it is a situation concerning a Dalit or a tribal, you can write to the national commissions for those communities. You can write to the Women's Commission, or you can send a complaint to the Women's Commission also. These commissions can look at these complaints of non-registration as well, and they can carry out inquiry and pass recommendations. And if they come to that conclusion, they could even ask for prosecution, but I doubt that will happen. But maybe some compensation, etc. Now on protest, we don't have much time now, Matthew, because protest that's a big issue.
I suggest. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I suggest remaining questions are answered online.
Okay.
And then we pass it on to the participants. I think that is
okay. Okay.
Would that be okay, Matthew?
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay.
It's a big thing for test. So I was keeping it for the end. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Devika. There's nobody who could have done it as patiently as you, with history, with standards, practice, at the same time appealing to the police. To my participant friends, I've spent 35 years, almost 40 years now, dealing with these gentlemen. I have never had tough times with women as far as I can think, so therefore I refer to gentlemen. But I've always found that if you are honest, if you are firm, if you are respectful, and if you can always demonstrate you are credible and honest, there is no repercussion that you have to face immediately. Yes, there is a reputation. There is a reputation which is very, very funny. Police officers hesitate to come to my office. And I say this with humility. And when I asked them, I said, why do you not come as single people? Why do you come as 8 different branches together, 6 branches together? Then at the end they say, sir, we never knew that you would be so kind to us. We never knew that you would be so respectful to us. We were given an impression that you would yell at us. I said, yes. I yell at you people when you do mistakes in public platforms. I do yell. But that is not to run down any of you. That is because you have taken the law into your hands and denied the basic rights of a poor person. But when you come one-to-one, I have no reason. And I don't bring anybody who has offenses against him to my office. I don't even allow them to enter the office. So I think the moral of the story after these 30, 40 years is, friends, never fear the police.
Correct.
Never challenge the police alone. Challenge them as an organization, as a group of people, as unions, as associations. Don't do it alone. When you do it alone, then you'll be definitely weakened. If you are a woman, even if you are a college lecturer, do it through a women's organization. You gain strength because the women's organization will speak for you. The women's organization will take up your case. So that is the suggestion I would like to make. And on legal aid, we will come back again. There is a whole session on legal aid. We will definitely come back. There is a whole session on the National Human Rights Commission. We will come back. I only want Hari to wish Mr. A.K. Parashar, who is in the audience today. He is there for all these days, but he's a senior gentleman whose birthday it is today. So I want to wish Mr. A.K. Parashar on all our behalf. Can at least his video be shown so that people are able to see?
Happy birthday, sir.
Thank you.
We want to see you to wish you. We want to see you, sir.
Okay.
Possible, if it's possible. Sorry.
No, I'll just see.
It's possible. Some of you would be in a very relaxed situation. I don't want to force you. But all of us wish you, sir. And I want to tell my friends that when we fight institutions not because the institution is bad or the individuals are bad. We cling on to people even after their retirement when we know that they own the institution and tried their best even inside the institution. And one such person that all of us here, many of us here know and respect is Mr. Anil Parashar, who spent almost 24 long years with the National Human Rights Commission, has retired and now associates himself voluntarily with the Human Rights Defenders Alert. Happy birthday, sir. Happy birthday. Friends, there is a complaint which is coming to me. I think there is a limit to these kind of complaints being referred. Everybody has the freedom to communicate. If somebody is sending you communications which are stupid, which you don't want to entertain, don't entertain. Don't you get phone calls from ICICI Bank? What do? Do you complain to Henry Define? I know one gentleman has picked up your phone from your WhatsApp group and is asking for a donation of 500 rupees for some corona-related work. If you want, you donate, but don't make it a complaint. I mean, we should learn. I mean, everything cannot be handled by a Henry Tiffin. Please. I hope you understand. And those people don't like it, so don't carry on this. I make demand. I make requests to people. Can you contribute to a certain purpose, etc. But if I don't like something which is coming on my SMS, I don't take it seriously. But don't make that a subject matter of a complaint. Please understand that we have got lots of other things to attend to. Attending to 21 days program is a lot of burden. Plus, we have other public relations issues to be handled. Tomorrow, as I told you, is the second anniversary of several people who were killed in Tuticorin. We are organizing a public meeting. We are hoping we will get 1 lakh people online to attend the meeting. It's not an easy joke. So please understand, if you see us stressed, please understand why we are so.